Now, welcome to the broadcast. I am Ian Ktn. On the sign language desk is Wilson Mushora. Now, tonight, a sharp focus has been directed at top leaders whose tribal bigotry is threatening cohesion and polarizing the country with remarks that threatens next year's general election. Caught in the crossfires are leaders allied to President William Ruto, who have made reckless ethnic-based remarks, some of which border on sensitive issues such as tampering of elections. The serious statements have forced Deputy President Kithure Kindiki to move in an attempt to damage control by assuring Kenyans of credible elections. Alana Chanda opens our broadcast tonight.
Inflammatory sentiments now largely characterize political speeches, and President William Ruto's allies appear to be on the loose, even brazenly telling it on the face of Kenyans that next year's presidential elections can be tampered with in favor of President William Ruto.
Sisi ndo tunatengeneza budget ya uchaguzi. Sisi ndo tunalipa IEBC pesa. Sisi ndo tunalipa commissioners pesa. Ruto ndio mwenye hiyo budget. Sasa Ruto taanguka namna gani nyinyi? Wewe unatengeneza budget ya kuanguka? Hapa Kenya tutashinda na 100%. Hey.
Wamesema eti kura za Bwana Ruto zisipotosha wataongeza. Watafanya ukarabati. Na tayari wameona kura hesabu yao haingii.
Nobody has the ability, whoever they are, to interfere with the election outcome of the Republic of Kenya. And nobody can overturn the will of the people of Kenya.
The opposition, alarmed by the statements, now wants the electoral body IEBC to pronounce itself on its impartiality. Political observers saying yes, the IEBC may employ foolproof measures to deter any malpractices, but the sentiments amount to psychological warfare with the aim of killing Kenyans' morale.
They are deploying a psychological warfare technique which is about to disarm you even before you start voting. What they are doing, that's what I'm saying, is illegal. You see, IEBC, if it were to be independent, because it is clearly not independent, it should arrest those people, charge them, and bar them from contesting.
Another lot within the ruling UDA party has also been put under sharp focus over ethnicization of national conversations. UDA Secretary General Hassan Omar, though, has rendered an apology. His remarks accusing the residents of Mount Kenya of entitlement, yet have enjoyed the fruits of successive governments uninterrupted, besides saying they were behind the recent nationwide demonstrations, rubbed a section of Kenyans the wrong way. Given he's a mouthpiece of the ruling party, his remarks carry weight and might just be a distraction.
Now, when you fail, the development and go to tribalism, hoping that you will incite the tribes against one another. But I think these people are living in 1990s. It will not be able to work. 2007 will not happen. And I can tell you why. Since 2007, our integration time is almost around the 40%. Anybody who is trying to bring tribal animosity, that person will be declaring war on Kenya, not just on the Kikuyos. It will be on Kenya.
The focus, however, shifts to the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, whose commissioners were sworn into office last week, as to whether they will term loose-tongue politicians or not. Alana Chanda, KTN.
Of course, among the concerns is the silence of President William Ruto in regards to sentiments made by his own party officials, led by Secretary General Hassan Omar. Now, a Nairobi court has sentenced Nairobi County Finance CEC Charles Kerech to 3 months in jail for contempt of court over a 106 million debt owed to a city law firm. The court has ordered that the sentence remain in force despite allegations by some lawyers that the senior county official is boasting of powerful connections that could shield him from arrest. Haman Kamariki with the details.
The contempt sentence was issued on May 19, 2026 by Justice Francis Gikonyo of the Milimani High Court Commercial and Tax Division. Gikonyo ordered that Charles Kerich serve 3 months in prison without the option of a fine for disobeying court orders to pay over 106 million debt. The order further directs the officer commanding station or OCS at Central Police Station to arrest and commit Kerich to prison. Central Police Station in Nairobi is named as the executing authority, with instructions to transfer him to Industrial Area Remand Prison. But according to a letter sent by KTN, lawyers have written to Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja demanding the immediate enforcement of a High Court order. The lawyers warn that any officer who fails to execute the committal order risks criminal liability. The legal firm Ogado and Company Advocates says Kerich has allegedly been openly claiming that his connections to the system will protect him from arrest. The dispute stems from a long-running case involving unpaid legal fees of over 106.7 million Kenya shillings owed by Nairobi County Government to Kwengu and Company Advocates. Court records show the county repeatedly failed to comply with earlier orders, despite clear directives to release the funds. Justice Gikonyo ruled that Kerich, as the County Executive Committee member for Finance, had full knowledge of the orders but deliberately failed to ensure compliance. The judge emphasized that no public officer is above the law and declared him guilty of contempt. Lawyers further warn that any attempt to frustrate the arrest could amount to criminal conduct, urging police to act without delay. They have given the Inspector General of Police a 24-hour ultimatum to confirm the arrest and detention process. The matter now sets up a direct test of enforcement of court orders in Kenya, as pressure mounts on the National Police Service to act on the High Court directive without delay. Haman Kamariki, KTN.
Still within the corridors of justice, the High Court in Nairobi has ordered Parliament to disclose how much it spends on the National Prayer Breakfast. High Court Judge Justice Gregory Mutai, in a case filed by lawyer Lempasu Yanker, ruled that Parliament must comply with the constitutional dictate of right to information. Jeff Kirui with a story.
As the bicameral parliament gears to host the 23rd National Prayer Breakfast on Thursday this week, the High Court has directed the Augustus to provide information on the cost of hosting the event within 30 days in a format that is accessible to laymen.
The respondents have not shown why it would be necessary to withhold such information or to provide it, or why they will not want to provide it in a manner that is accessible to lay Kenyans without accounting knowledge.
In a case filed by lawyer Lempasu Yinka, Justice Gregory Mutai said that it is against the right to information for the Augustus to waive secrecy while spending taxpayers' money for the event.
It is true, as submitted by the petitioner, that the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is a transformative compact with provisions that aid Kenyans in accessing information that helps them to hold the leaders accountable.
The judge, however, declined to declare the annual event as unconstitutional after finding that it was not properly pleaded for in the case. Justice Mutai observed that although the issue of establishing a state religion raised by the lawyer was important, it needed to be pursued separately in a fresh case.
It is my view that submissions are not pleadings, and this has been stated by courts in a plethora of decisions. I must state that I'm required to determine issues that are pleaded by the parties and not to determine those that the petitioner ought to have pleaded. It was open for the petitioner at all times before judgment to apply to amend his pleadings.
The National Prayer Breakfast, which was established in 2003, was intended to foster national reconciliation, transcending political and ethnic divides, and promoting ethical, value-based leadership. However, the current political environment appears not to favor a sitting of the government and the opposition, as critics of government say they will not attend.
But we also find it difficult to play pretense, tuende tukae mahali na watu ambao, although that tradition is there, but there's so much hypocrisy.
Jeff Kirui, KTN.
Now, the government-to-government fuel deal has once again come under tight scrutiny in the National Assembly amidst soaring prices of fuel in the country. Now, claims of cartels being involved in the said deal were made right inside the National Assembly. A heated exchange ensued in the August House as MPs traded barbs over alleged lack of transparency in the agreement. As Bentura Komboka reports, proposition of scrapping some fuel levies to ease pressure at the pump were vehemently opposed by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah.
After a month-long recess, members of parliament reconvened back for a sitting. With the priority agenda, the spike of fuel prices in the country, a price they have attributed to the ongoing global fuel market disruptions occasioned by the current war in the Middle East. A heated debate ensued between Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndende Nyoro and majority and minority leaders over the G2G oil deal, with accusation of cartels and lack of transparency over terms spelled out in the agreement as Kenyans continue to bear the brunt of high fuel prices. It was Nyoro who had written to the Speaker of the National Assembly for the House to resume to discuss the critical issues about fuel crisis.
It lacks transparency. It has not secured competitive prices. What the experts will tell you, better market price discovery.
The government of Saudi Arabia and the government of UAE in that G2G, on this other side, they are dealing with a cartel which is milking Kenya's Honorable Speaker of their money.
Let us appreciate the gains we have made from G2G, Madam Speaker. You can call it G2C, G2D, G2Y, whatever you want.
We can see that there is a problem with this G2G deal. And if it cannot respond to the issue of price, then it is a bad deal. And we must consider getting rid of it.
While listening to proposal by Ndende Nyoro of scrapping the 7 shillings per litre increase on the road maintenance levy fund introduced in 2024 that's projected to be a lasting solution on fuel crisis, legislatures led by Kimani Ichung'wah said the ripple effect will slow down the economy.
We bring down RMLF by Kenya shilling 7. Honorable Speaker, these are not all the taxes. RMLF is 25 shillings. I'm just proposing 7.
You know, as a member of this House, that whatever you give, something else must give in. It will translate either to reduced capitation for our secondary school and primary school students. It will translate to either lower funding for our university students. It will translate to lower budgetary allocation.
However, the MPs are now proposing an introduction of a moratorium and alternative mobility means like BRTs and commuter trains.
There is no other sector in this country that is making more money in terms of profits than the financial services sector, and I'm speaking to banks and the bank owners. It is possible today for our banking sector to extend the same moratorium to our transport sector players. And I'm not talking about Matatus alone and buses. I'm talking about truck owners and truck drivers who transport goods, including the food we eat in Nairobi and other urban areas.
7 days ago, the Law Society of Kenya, LSK, called for the audit of the G2G, including all agreements, procurement processes, pricing mechanism, supply allocation, and associated public financial obligations. Bentura Komboka, KTN.
To matters taxation and public and lobby groups such as Institute of Public Funds, KEWOPA and the Kenya Human Rights Commission now want the wealthy to be taxed more in a bid to create a balance with the struggling mwananchi. And as Milia Kisienya reports, at least 14% of Kenyans have been listed as high net worth individuals who can generate over 21 billion shillings in revenue if taxed more in the proposed 2026 financial bill.
High net worth individuals and large asset holders are now on the radar of being included in the long list of those that should be taxed in the proposed 2026 finance bill.
To tax the wealthy more.
Fronting for this are lobby groups that claim the common mwananchi has been cornered enough. Airing the views was the Public Institute Fund, KEWOPA and the Kenya Human Rights Commission, who argue that a minimum wage worker who surrenders more in taxes is an economic strangulation.
Unfortunately, what we are seeing is that there are exemptions, especially on aircraft spare parts that will be exempted. So this basically means that the country will be losing revenue.
And to counter the existing issue, the lobby groups now state a sum of 21 billion Kenya shillings can be collected from the high net worth individuals who are reported to be over 14% in the country, many who are listed to own real estates and aircrafts.
Reports indicate that the wealthy have grown by 14%. So those are many. Right now we are speaking about 16 centi-billionaires. And also we are talking about 7,200 individuals in this country that are also ranking as high net worth individuals because they own about 129 million.
Meanwhile, tax exemption for the over 1.5 million Kenyans earning 30,000 Kenya shillings and below was also echoed, with KRA put on the scale to elaborate more about the 25% exercise duty on mobile phones that has so far created a stir among Kenyans.
When you say that you're going to actually tax somebody at the point of when the phones are being bought or when you're charging the phone, then it becomes ambiguous, because how do you tax? There must be a clear view of how this excise duty that you want to charge is going to be done.
The Treasury, however, argues that the 25% is actually a reduction, as it is only one tax compared to previous taxes where up to 50% was being levied. Milia Kisienya, KTN.
Now, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has warned leaders in government against making reckless statements, saying recent remarks have already polarized some parts of the country. Gachagua made the remarks in Nakuru, where he said no community should be coerced into voting in a certain way, terming such actions as infringing on constitutional rights. Ken Gashuhe reports.
Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua joined congregants and the Full Gospel Churches of Kenya in Nakuru during the memorial service of Reverend Catherine Masharia, wife of the Church General Overseer.
My dear wife, the mother to our children, a great pillar in my family.
Gachagua used the opportunity to criticize government leaders over inflammatory remarks.
Nakuru County has borne the brunt of ethnic violence from 1992, 97, and 2007. We don't want to see what happened here in Nakuru and Rift Valley ever happen again. Tunaomba wale viongozi wanatembea na rais huko Mombasa to stop drums of war.
Wanasiasa na viongozi watachoma Kenya hii na baadaye wapeleke watu wengi makaburini kabla ya wakati wao, nayo laana iwafuate. Tafadhalini msiakishe mioto ambayo baadaye mtashindwa na kuzima, muanze kuuliza kanisa liko wapi.
Gachagua said the inflammatory statements by leaders risk triggering political violence, especially in cosmopolitan regions.
Kila mtu ako na uhuru ya kuwa na mali popote katika Jamhuri ya Kenya. Na wale watu wanakaa hapa Nakuru, this is your home and you have no other home. Wale wote wanakaa katika bonde la Ufa, this is your home and you have no other home. Hata wakitaka kuoana huko wazae watoto wapewe nafasi waoe wengine, ndio hii Kenya ikuwe moja. Mimi naomba jamii zote tuoane. Tunataka kuwa na Kenya moja ambaye haina jamii hii na jamii ile.
He also urged the leaders to refrain from remarks suggesting plans to interfere with the outcomes of the coming general election.
Don't threaten people mtaiba uchaguzi, kwa sababu hiyo ni kutisha watu, na hakuna haja kutisha wananchi. Na kura hakuna mtu ataiba. Kura tutapiga na ihesabiwe hapo kwa polling station. Katiba ya Kenya inasema kila mtu wako uhuru apige kura pahali anataka. Na therefore mimi sitaki mtu auziwe uoga. Ati muambiwe msipopiga kura namna hii ati sijui mtafanya nini.
At the same time, he called on the security sector to take action to curb the rising cases of homicides and disappearance of children.
Mchungaji wetu aliyeuawa mpaka leo hatujaweza kupata ni nani aliweza kumuua. Na tunataka muzingatie hiyo, tusukume, kwa sababu wachungaji wakiwa atakuwa shida hiyo zitumekwisha.
CCTV footage is there showing 4 police officers getting into his house and staying there for 3 hours and torturing him. Today there is cover up, they have not been arrested. Watoto 23 every day wanapotea. Nimeona msemaji wa polisi akisema ati hakuna shida, ni vile social media inaeleza sana ndio wanaonekana kama ni wengi.
Ken Gashuhi, KTN.
Well, that story by Ken Gashuhi takes us to a fast breather. But before we do, just a reminder of our question for the conversation as from 10 p.m. and we ask you, what is your take on the 2026-27 finance bill? What is your take on the 2026-27 finance bill? We'll be having that conversation from 10. Of course, do send us your feedback via SMS to 22151. And of course, on X is at KTN News KE, and of course across all our social media platforms. The hashtag to use is KTN Prime. We'll be back with more. Do stay with us. Welcome back. There is a growing disquiet and sharp divisions with the broad-based government pitting the ruling UDA party and ODM party that might dent their planned pre-election agreement. The Special Management Committee that was to sort out the issue about zoning has never held a meeting with ODM members. And as our senior political affairs reporter Chris Thairu reports, the division have seen Siaya Senator Oburu Oginga and Homa Bay Governor Gladys Wanga retreat from their quest to be Ruto's running mate, leaving mining CS Hassan Joho as the frontrunner so far.
Almost 1.5 months since President William Ruto chaired a crisis meeting at State House, Nairobi, in a bid to save the UDA-ODM marriage ahead of the 2027 general election, it would have been expected that by now the management committee, tasked with resolving the outstanding differences, would have met and prepared a preliminary report. However, that is not the case. KTN can now confirm that since the last meeting, nothing has ever moved and the membership of the committee has never been agreed. It is also emerging that political goodwill has been lacking from the UDA team. Since then, Minority Leader Junet Mohamed has gone under, avoiding public limelight and the discussion to do with zoning.
Sisi hatutaki kiti cha deputy president. Hiyo kiti ya deputy president ndio tunalenga sana. Hiyo ndio tunalenga.
The growing disquiet has also seen ODM party leader Oburu Oginga and chairperson Gladys Wanga retreat and shelve the ambitions of being the preferred running mate for President William Ruto in the coming general election and seek re-election in their respective elective positions.
So whoever is talking of zoning as if it is a new concept is deceiving us. It is something which will happen whether we like it or not. It will happen.
At the end of the day, only one person will be elected. The rest of the people will be here looking for also something else to do. And they can only find those opportunities if we are in power. And if we have negotiated properly for our party, the ODM party. So that if you are not elected, you can get something else and sit on that seat.
According to the ODM party constitution, the party leader is the automatic presidential flag bearer, and in case of a coalition, they still hold an upper hand than others in the party. With the exit of Oburu and Wanga, then this leaves mining CS Hassan Joho as a front runner for the running mate position in ODM party.
Wana Mombasa, nataka niwaulize, ukiniangalia mimi, sitaki kuwa rais wa nchi. Nataka staki.
And then also if we check the wins that have happened in Coast and Nyanza, the broad-based government has recorded wins in the sense that they will feel that now they have the coastal vote and they have the Luo Nyanza vote and the Western vote. That if you put in the equation of 2027, then it's a good starting point for the president.
For the past 5 days that President William Ruto has been camping at the coastal region, they seem to have developed a tight political relationship with Joho, who has assured the president of delivering the coastal votes to Kenya Kwanza come 2027. The zoning aspect continues to be the main stumbling block for a pre-election agreement between UDA and ODM parties. Which way ODM? Chris Dairo, KTN, Nairobi.
To a very concerning and alarming story now, and for two families in Mathare 4A and Huruma areas in Nairobi, every sunrise brings fresh hope, and every sunset deepens the pain of unanswered questions. Their children disappeared within 2 years of each other, and both were aged between 8 and 9. To date, neither family knows where they are. Tonight, we bring you the heartbreaking stories of mothers and guardians trapped between hope and despair, clinging to memories as they continue hoping to see their children soonest. Our reporter Ktn Prime visited the families and now brings us this report.
Inside the narrow alleys of Mathare 4A, silence now fills homes that were once alive with children's laughter. For Rehema Aoko, October 2024 remains a month she wishes she could erase from memory.
Nikimkumbuka tu hivi, hata siwezi kula. Hata sijui mtoto wangu wako wapi. Ama yeye amelala njaa. Yani maisha imekuwa ngumu kabisa. Hata kama alikuwa mgonjwa, basi itu alikuwa wangu.
Her firstborn son, Teddy Odhiambo, was only 8 years old then when he disappeared.
Alipotea akiwa na 8 years. Tu hapa tu Mathare hapa. Mtoto alikuwa anacheza hapa kwa field na akaenda tu hivyo. Sasa tumejaribu kumtafuta, lakini alikuwa mtoto mgonjwa. Hakuwa sawa. Alikuwa ajui kuongea, but anasikia. Na hakuwa anajua hakuwa anakaa pole. Alikuwa anapenda kurukaruka hivyo.
Just a few meters away lives another family carrying a similar wound. Gladys Mwanza, a grandmother, has spent the last 5 months searching for her 9-year-old grandson, Moses Onyango.
Sasa kuenda kutembelea mjomba wake, na alikuwa amelala huko siku 3. Sasa kukuja huku hakufika.
For Gladys, every passing day is filled with painful uncertainty, wondering whether Moses is safe.
Tangu wapotee paka saa hii sina furaha. Furaha yangu iliisha. Nafikirianga tu huyo mtoto, ninaanza kulia. Sasa kama nimeshafikiria ninaanza kutembea. Ninatembea hata kwa njia, nitembee nimwangalie.
The stories of these two families mirror the pain of many Kenyan families whose children vanish without explanation, leaving behind endless questions and broken hearts.
Mbona tangu hii story ianze ya watoto kupotea, hakuna hata action yoyote washawaichukua. Hakuna hata kitu yote tunasikia wanaongea.
Government remains committed to ensuring that we support those children have been abducted.
As this happens, the government has raised concern over the increasing cases of child abductions, violence and abuse affecting children across the country.
Naomba tu serikali anisaidie akiwala nipate mtoto wangu haki. Yani nimemiss karibu sasa ni 2 years.
Nataka tu serikali munisaidie.
A mother's love, they say, never gives up even when the world goes silent. Ktn Prime, KTN, Nairobi.
Shifting gears to matters education and the plight of teachers. Behind the blackboards and lesson plans, a silent crisis may be consuming thousands of teachers across the country. A new survey has uncovered alarming levels of mental exhaustion, debt and financial distress among educators, raising fresh concern over their welfare. With burnout rising and many teachers living from payslip to payslip, pressure is now mounting on the Ministry of Education to urgently intervene before the situation spirals into a full-blown crisis in schools. And Musindu reports.
Teachers across the country could be battling a silent mental health crisis, with many reportedly struggling behind classroom doors. A new teacher wellness and engagement survey by the Kenya National Union of Teachers and NITE paints a worrying picture, revealing that mental health challenges among teachers stand at 41%. The report further shows that 6 in every 10 teacher is experiencing burnout, while 12% admitted facing suicidal risk within the last month alone.
Teachers are actually suicidal, and that was within the month that the survey was taken, and 70% of teachers have no access to counseling services. And of course, physical wellness was also a key item, and we learned that teachers actually do not have a preventative healthcare practice. They are very reactive.
The survey also exposes a deepening financial crisis among teachers, with many trapped in a cycle of debt and survival. According to the findings, 92% of teachers are financially vulnerable and unable to withstand unexpected expenses. An overwhelming 88% cannot clear their debts while maintaining basic living standards, while 97% say their salaries are exhausted before the month ends. The report further reveals that preparedness among teachers is almost non-existent, highlighting a dangerous gap in long-term financial security.
We found out some interesting data from 875 teachers from all over the country, so it was a national survey. We found out that financial literacy is the least rated dimension when it comes to wellness. 97% of teachers have no money left over at the end of the month, and they are living from payslip to payslip.
This comes as the Ministry of Education says it is considering expanding wellness centers across the country.
As a government, we are going to do is study the report, and then study the recommendations that have been made, and work towards coming up with policy interventions to support our teachers going forward in the areas that have been identified.
With the Cabinet Secretary now at the center of the conversation, pressure is mounting on the Ministry of Education to roll out meaningful solutions that can restore teachers' well-being. Stakeholders say improving educators' mental and financial stability is critical in boosting morale, strengthening classroom performance, and ensuring effective learning delivery in schools. And Musungu, KTN, Nairobi.
Now, Kenya remains on high alert following confirmed Ebola cases in the neighboring Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. At the Busia border, county and national health officials say surveillance, screening and public sensitization have been intensified to prevent the deadly virus from entering the country. But a spot check along the busy border crossing reveals a different concern among traders and residents, as our reporter Violet Auma reports.
At the Busia border, movement remains busy. Traders, border riders, pedestrians, truck drivers and travelers continue to cross between Kenya and Uganda every day. The concern follows confirmed Ebola cases in Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, raising fear among communities that depend on cross-border trade.
Tunaogopa sana serikali tusaidie juu hii Ebola vile imekuja, sisi tunabeba dereba wa matrela wenye anasafiri kutoka nje mbalimbali. Tunaomba serikali ikuwe na mikakati ya kutupima sisi kama bodaboda. Kama hapa Busia tuko na mpaka mingi sana za kuingia Uganda za kutoka. Na sasa hii serikali imebuild tu kwa mpaka ya custom peke yake, gate main.
Busia Deputy Governor Arthur Odera says the county government, together with health officials, have stepped up surveillance.
And if you go to the border points, Busia, Malaba, you will find people dressed in a certain way, wanakuscreen, wanataka kujua temperature yako. Tunajaribu kuzuia ugonjwa huo usiingie Kenya. But remember, Busia and Malaba are not the only places ambao kuna kivuko. Watu wanavuka kila pahali. We have a very porous border.
County officials say health teams have been sent to guide residents on Ebola prevention, including reporting suspected symptoms early. The government says Busia is prepared, but on the ground, some traders say they have not received enough information. Others say screening points are not visible, especially in areas used by small-scale traders and pedestrians who cross the border several times a day.
Tunapima wenye wanaingia na mabasi, lakini sisi wenye tunapita kwa miguu, wale wenye wanapita kwa pikipiki, hakuna vipimo vyovyote. Tunapita tu. Watu waelimishe maneno ya Ebola. Inafaa watuambie kama wameweka vipimo mahali, watuambie viko mahali fulani, Wakenya waende wapime,
na inafaa waweke vipimo kila mahali, hata kwa makodokodo, ili watu waweze kupimwa, sababu hapa kwa mpaka makodo ni mengi sana.
Hofu yetu ni kwamba kuna wale watu wenye wanafanya biashara Kenya wanaenda Uganda, so hao wanapitanga hapa na hawapimwi, so hao wanaweza kutuletea hiyo maugonjwa.
Health experts warn that one missed case in a busy border town can put many people at risk, especially where information is limited and screening is not consistent.
We have had discussions with Red Cross for them to also mount a screening unit for pedestrians, especially on the other side.
Uganda has so far reported 7 confirmed Ebola cases, including 1 death. Violet Auma, KTN.
Now, as political temperatures slowly begin to rise ahead of the 2027 general election, leaders are being challenged to steer the country away from divisive and tribal politics. That message dominated discussions during a courtesy visit by Standard Media Group Chief Executive Officer Chacha Mwita to Kakamega Governor Fernandes Barasa, with both leaders calling for national unity, responsible leadership and protection of media freedom. Bramwell Bwire with that report.
The warning was clear. Kenya cannot afford to return to politics of division. During a meeting at Kakamega County Headquarters, Kakamega Governor Fernandes Barasa and Standard Media CEO Chacha Mwita urged political players to reject ethnic mobilization and focus instead on issues affecting ordinary citizens. The governor will also call on leaders across the country to defend press freedom, describing the media as a key pillar in democratic governance.
As one of the fellows who love media, I really want to plead with my colleagues here that we need to support media. I'm one of the champions of media freedom, and you need to give media the freedom so that they can really carry out their responsibilities and objective of being independent, to inform the public and also do oversight. So media freedom is key in this current dispensation.
Press freedom is part and parcel of a healthy democratic society. And as we move closer to the 2027 general election, I feel like the Standard Group and the media generally has a role to cultivate closer relationships with political leaders because of the power and leverage we have. We have to tell our leaders very early in this campaign, upcoming campaign season, that we stand for national unity, that we stand for peace, we stand for those things that bring us together as a country and not those things that divide us and separate us as a country.
The meeting comes amid a growing national debate over the tone of political discourse in the country, with concerns already being raised over early campaigns and rising political intolerance. Bramwell Bwire, Ktn, Kakamega.
Now, before we take another brief breather here on Ktn Prime, let's have a look at what to expect tomorrow morning on Kenya's bold newspaper, that is The Standard. And on the front page, they say impunity. They go ahead to say fugitive. Nairobi City Finance boss Charles Kirich is a wanted man after a High Court order committed him to jail for contempt. But despite the ruling, Kirich is not in jail and continues to enjoy his freedom. Justice Francis Gikonyo issued the order after Kirich defied directives to pay millions of shillings owed to a law firm, setting up a potential confrontation between the judiciary and the police. Lawyers have now warned Inspector General Douglas Kanja that failure to enforce the order could itself amount to contempt of court. That is a story on page 4. Of course, the amount in question is 106.7 million, money that he was directed or ordered to pay to Kwengu and company advocates. Of course, make sure you grab a copy for yourself tomorrow morning to get details in regards to that and many more stories within the country and even beyond our borders. Time for a break now. When we come back, we tell you manufacturers are unhappy over finance bill. Stay with us.
Hello there, this is Business Prime. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Now, manufacturers have decried taxation of raw materials and imports originating from the EAC partner states as prescribed in the Finance Bill 2026. KTN's Nwakip Kemboi unpacks how the sector that contributes 7.1% of the GDP is set to be impacted should the Finance Bill go through.
The manufacturing sector has been on a decline over the past decade, despite contributing more than 30% of exports and 11.7% of formal jobs, reflecting the dwindling purchasing power of the population, something the Association of Manufacturers say can be solved in the taxation regime.
And low buying power for the citizens because of the employment taxes. So the lower cadre, we are proposing that we need to review the lower cadre of employees, anyone below 50,000 shillings, they would need to remove the taxes so that we create a level where they have the purchasing power. We've noted that a lot of our goods produced locally are not being purchased because people do not have money.
With a 50 billion shilling VAT refund backlog at the Kenya Revenue Authority, the sector has proposed for the taxman to keep a percentage of the VAT to be used on refunds.
Kenya is competing with other manufacturers in the region and in Africa and internationally. We've seen a lot of taxation introduced on inputs. One is the excise duty, and two is the export investment promotion levy. And our proposal is we need to remove taxation on raw materials. We've taxed raw materials and input for the manufacturing sector for the last couple of years, and that has not helped us in terms of increase in our GDP contribution. So we believe
the sector further opposed the amendment of the Income Tax Act that states that at least 60% of income to be deemed as distributed dividend and taxable, noting that this is excessive and limits the ability of manufacturers to reinvest profits into expansion, technology upgrades, and employment creation. Nwakip Kemboi, KTN.
Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi defended the proposed National Infrastructure Fund before the National Assembly Committee on Energy as MPs sought clarity on how the fund will operate and where its financing will come from. Now, according to Mbadi, the fund is intended to ease pressure on the national budget by allowing commercially viable state entities to finance their own projects instead of relying entirely on government allocations.
Let us not live and get stuck in mentality of our budget funding everything. You know, there are projects that we have been funding with our budget which should not. That is why Kenya is now struggling to pay its debts. We have to start thinking differently.
Looking at Section 38 that limits this, I don't know where to place the commercial viability of KETRACO and GTC. Yes, in fact, even us as a committee, we are asking, why is it that the government is funding KPLC, being a listed company, by, let's say there is some profits. Then again, some people sitting out there will be benefiting from dividends.
Kenya's flour export sector is warning of a potential losses of up to $4 million as global tensions and local transport disruptions squeeze the industry. The Kenya Flour Council says air freight costs have surged by nearly 60% from $3.1 to almost $5 per kilogram, while production costs going up by 30%, now driven largely by expensive fertilizer. This comes just weeks before Kenya hosts the International Floriculture Trade Fair 2026, raising fresh concerns over the country's key foreign exchange earners.
Today, freight alone accounts for between 40 and 60% of total export costs during peak periods. As a result, approximately $4 million worth of flour exports are currently at risk every single week. Fertilizer prices have risen by approximately 25% within 1 week. Production costs across farms have increased by 20 to 30%. Some farms have experienced revenue declines of up to 75% due to shipment delays and perishability losses. Industry projections indicate a decline in export volume of up to 20%, export losses exceeding $15 billion every month, potential loss of up to 50,000 jobs.
All right, with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Business Prime. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Have a wonderful night.
Renewed